So Israel. Speaking of 70 years, 70 years to this year was 1950. June 25th, 1950 was the start of the Korean War, and now we are 70 years after. 70 years ago, President Truman recognized Israel as a state.
Yeah.
And now, December 7th, 2017, we have the embassy,
Yep.
the U.S. embassy being moved. So, Dick, if you want to pull up this, this is from the White House. And this is President Trump, their statement being put out there. Okay, this is it. 70 years later, it's official.
Yeah.
And they had been, I think it was Clinton was in office when they officially were like, okay, this is going to happen. But they kept saying, no, we're not going to officially do it. It's too dangerous or whatever. And so now you have the embassy officially, the U.S. Embassy officially in Jerusalem, and Jerusalem officially the state capital of Israel. And so, so pretty wild stuff. So what's going on in Israel?
What's not going on in Israel?
Yeah.
I think right now, I mean, God basically is telling you Israel is becoming the focal point again in history. I think we see that right now with all the peace deals going on. I mean, these are important times, but also as a Christian to look back and say, look, what is going on in Israel? Well, okay, there is a temple institute trying to rebuild the third temple. And back in 2018, December 10th, 2018, the altar was dedicated for that third temple.
So we got this article up here from the Jerusalem Post.
Yeah, show that article, because this is, temple-ready altar dedicated on last day of Hanukkah by activist group. And they call it activist group, but it's the Orthodox Jews.
Yeah, it wasn't Antifa and BLM.
And that you can find that they have all of the temple furniture ready to go as well.
Yes.
Like everything is ready. And so all they're looking for is someone to implement the temple and
and that's why we talk about Trump, as well. And I had written down here, and I think 2016, looking at Trump as Cyrus. If people don't understand who Cyrus was, he was the one that made the call for the second temple to be rebuilt. And so I started doing some research on that in 2016, and I said, man, this is, I believe this is what's going to happen. Trump is going to make that call. It'll probably be in his second term, because that's when most, presidents get really bold.
Right.
And so I started researching it, and that's when I come across the Temple Institute, but I also came across this coin.
Yeah, boy.
The Trump coin. So this is a temple coin.
Check this out.
So that
it's good.
is a temple coin that gets you in the third temple when it's built.
And whose face is on that?
Who's the guy with the mullet? The guy with the mullet is President Trump.
That is Trump and Cyrus.
Yeah.
And so when I came across that, and the Temple Institute is selling these to fund the third temple.
Yeah.
And to me, that was like, it was one of those God things of saying, hey, look, you're digging into this, and you're looking into things. Watch this.
Yeah.
And I ended up ordering two. I ended up ordering one for Pastor Greg,
right,
and one for me, because it was very important. It was another one of those things of saying, look, this is extremely important. Israel doesn't put a president on their coin.
Come on.
This doesn't have. There are no coincidences in this
Who
stuff.
was, if I'm not mistaken, was Cyrus? Was that Medes and Persians, or was that the Babylonian? Who was that?
No, I think it was the.
I think it was the Medes and Persians.
Yes.
Because
I believe Babylonians were
they
in
actually,
power, and then they were overtaken by the
because
Medes.
Nebuchadnezzar, and then his son
Cyrus
was killed,
was not the
and then
one.
Darius was.
Because Cyrus was not the one that saw the temple built.
Correct.
Yeah.
And so exactly, and so that's why I think you guys had asked me about him being Cyrus. Yeah, I think he calls for the third temple to be rebuilt, but I don't think it starts during his second term. I think that's a little later on, which is where the timeline kind of comes in.
During the Kushner years.
During the Kushner years, or whoever that that may be. So
we don't know.
We don't know.
We don't know.
I'm just saying that,
Yep.
but
those are important timeline things to look at is how that all plays out.
Yeah.
But yeah, coming across that was interesting. And then, Jared Kushner, like again, going back to 2016 and all
Yep.
these calls are being made and saying, hey, Jared Kushner is
And-
he's going to do these things. And
Right.
it was, for me, I was like, man, I hadn't even heard the guy speak again. It was just,
And I would say this because I think we're all, and I don't know if we're going to get into this in the coming weeks, but we as a group need to be praying for Trump because Trump is going to make some serious calls in this next presidency. One being to overturn Roe versus Wade.
yeah.
That's probably why you see the chaos and the maniacs out there, and it's only going to get worse as soon as they add another one to this Supreme Court.
Yeah.
He's got the numbers to do it. And then if he makes the call to rebuild the third temple there in Israel,
Yeah.
we all know that
That's
the
gonna be
Palestinians
Yep.
and Iran, more than anyone,
Correct.
is going to flip out.
Yeah.
And if you read, and I would suggest everyone read, I believe it's Daniel 8, where it talks about the ram and the goat. And if you really break it down and you read who the goat is, I can help y'all, but it really makes you understand that this war, it has to happen for someone to rise up, which is we refer to the small horn.
Yeah.
But
The
for
little
him
horn,
to rise up, that is the
This
war
has
that,
to
that
be done.
implements.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so I truly believe that these things will be what causes things to really take off is once you hear that he announces, hey, let's go ahead and start the building of the second or the third temple.
Yeah.
that-
There will be that delay. And,
Yes.
and that has to happen. I mean, that's, like we say, that these things mirror each other in
Well, I
in
mean,
biblical terms.
you know, how long will it take them to build the third temple?
2 years.
Exactly. So from the time that they decide to start,
Could be 3 days.
Well, they've already announced 2 years is their
Rebuild the
timeline,
temple.
So
and even then, right, in Revelation, it says don't build the entire courts. It's just
it's
focus
just
on.
the actual temple.
So, I
Because
mean, there's
the court outside still belongs
to the
Gentiles.
Palestinians,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah. So I think one of the best ways to ensure that you are safe while you're building the temple is
You make a
sign
treaty.
peace deals.
There you
Correct.
go.
You make
Yeah.
a treaty,
And so,
which is the little horn treaty.
Yeah.
Exactly.
but Dick, if you want to pull up, these are some of the treaties that have been put together, some peace deals. So this was a big one with the UAE, Bahrain deal with Israel. So
And keep in mind too, Trump is leveraging America on these deals.
He is.
If you see the part where it's talking about economic growth, he's leveraging America
yeah,
in these deals. So if you think that Israel is making these deals alone, they're going to stand alone. They're not.
yeah,
We are tied to it, meaning if Israel does anything outside of what they're supposed to, we will fill the gaps.
Yeah.
yeah. And here's another one: Sudan and Kuwait, maybe next. Boy, George H.W. would be rolling in his grave. Saw that. No, but
And then we have,
and you said that there's like
Oman,
6 or 7 others that are in line.
Saudi Arabia, Sudan was one I think that I had given you guys
Yeah.
about a month ago.
With Saudi Arabia, you get Saudi Arabia done. We've discussed that. Like
Yeah.
you get that one, that's the domino that knocks all the other dominoes down.
They can strong arm a lot of those other nations to sign the deal.
You're right.
And I mean, that's why I said these are really important times to watch because these are the unions you have to watch.
And I think a lot of it is we have become so oil independent, the U.S., that Saudi Arabia needs a deal with us.
Yeah.
And once again, I think that Trump is leveraging America
Yeah.
in these deals.
Right.
So, anyways,
Yeah.
I don't want to go too
So-
far into it, but
Now,
But let's all get back on track here. Jared Kushner is the one doing these deals.
yes.
correct.
Trump is signing them. Jared Kushner is walking into these countries going, "You're going to make a deal with us."
Right.
Yeah.
Somebody asked us the other day, like, well, what is Jared Kushner? I said he's probably the most powerful man on the planet right now. And they look at me like, what? I'm like, you don't walk into Middle Eastern countries with Netanyahu in your back pocket and go, "You're going to make a deal with us."
Yeah.
That doesn't happen. Like this guy knows exactly what he's doing, and God has appointed him for this time,
Right.
and it's showing because you look at this guy, and I mean, it's just
Listen
like,
to his interviews. I
Yeah.
mean, he's sharp,
He is.
He's sharp and he knows what he's talking about.
And he's
but
well
you're
dressed.
not. Yeah, but you're not. He doesn't command the room.
No.
Or at least it doesn't appear that he commands the room.
But like Kim calls him humble.
Yeah.
I think that goes a long way in these negotiations. But, I mean, let's face it. I mean, Jared Kushner, he's probably the most powerful person on the planet right now. And
At least the most influential.
Yeah, but it's starting to show because you might talk peace, but these deals are over and above the talks. I mean, these are people coming to the table going, okay, man, and I mean, we're going to make these deals. And let's also get this straight. This is not the treaty that the Antichrist is making with Israel. This is not these deals.
And he's able to, because Netanyahu was being pressured into annexing a large portion of pretty much the Palestinian areas.
Yeah.
And the problem is I think 850,000 Jews live in that area.
Yeah.
So it was going to be kind of easy to annex it. And the Palestinians were not coming back to the table to talk. So what Jared did was, I say Jared, Trump, whoever wants to take credit for it, told them that they would not annex that area if they would come back to the table.
Yeah.
And that was the agreement. So they will be coming back to the table to start negotiating.
Once all these countries sign.
Right.
Palestine's not going to give in until everybody else gets in. Let's
Yeah,
face it.
true.
They're the wild card in the whole thing, and that's what's going to happen. So just hold your horses and
It's a
be
saving
calm.
face.
The point
It
is they want to, even if I'm not mistaken, currently right now, they have no state that is designated for them. And so the point is that, the Bible shows you that they will get a portion. And so is that at a certain point half of Jerusalem? I don't know, but I'm just saying they will be given their land or their own land, and that is something that they are striving for.
Yeah.
So
we are drawing near to the end of the age.
It's been that long?
Yeah. Last thing to touch on is something that's really wild. The Messiah has been found.
This is one thing that most Christians are really confused on, and really don't like talking about. That I find, and it's disturbing because you have to talk about these things in order to teach people, in order to at least prick their hearts enough to go study and say, hey, look, go dive into this stuff for yourself. A few years later, it was this year, in fact, that I've heard this guy on the radio in Israel saying, oh, well, we know who Messiah is, and Rabbi Kavitsky, who is like the number 2, I think, out of the top 3 rabbis in Israel. And he's been holding meetings with Messiah, and they know who he is, and he's ready to be revealed. Now, this is, this
You're
is
doing
their,
that through D-Wave?
good God.
that's a whole nother show. The quantum mechanics and the quantum physics.
Going along the lines, though, we both have confirmed
Yes.
that the rabbis have been instructed not to blow the shofar.
Yes, this year. Yep. So this
And
year,
that means that they have the shofar is supposed to be blown in the call
in
for
calling for
the
Messiah to be revealed. So
And
that's
so
a big
the
deal.
rabbis have been instructed not to blow it. You can say whatever you want. I don't know how often that has happened, but they truly do believe that whoever this is, and we can get into that on another episode,
show.
but it's a tremendous moment
Yeah.
when it comes to when you start tying it into everything else that we're finding out.
Yeah.